So I've got Josh Gibson here. You just brought me a magnificent drawing.
Mm-hmm.
And, how long have you been working on that? I mean, just the concept.
A while.
Yeah.
Um,
Weeks, months?
Probably somewhere in between.
Yeah, I would think. Because you knew about this show, the drawing show, early on. I think you were one of the first persons I told.
Yeah.
Because I know how good you are at graphics. I mean, I've seen all your drawings that you used to do, kind of futuristic. I don't know how you describe them, but so
Wild.
yeah, wild, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, that's a thing for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're really it was definitely very important early on.
Yeah.
Does it still have that importance now as a painter?
I think so. I mean, I think that it's like kind of the fundamental, like that's how you make a painting,
Mm-hmm.
So it's the underdrawing essentially of everything. It's the structure of everything. And I don't know, this made me want to do more, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought it might make you want to do less just because it was such a big
Yeah.
process.
I mean, during the process, I was like, I never want to do this again.
Yeah.
But then when I was done with it and people are like, I really like this, and I'm
Yeah.
like, now I'm done with it. So I have the foresight and the hindsight.
Yeah. And that piece that you brought me is, how big is it again?
30 by 60.
Yeah. That's an unframed size.
Yeah, yeah.
30 by 60. And you and I were discussing it a little bit, but which I find interesting when you take on a project like this, unlike a painting
Mm-hmm.
that you can scrape or rework or whatever, once you're working on a piece of paper, that's kind of it, right? I mean, you gotta,
Yeah. It's a bit daunting, but
yeah.
it's not bad.
And I would think it might even be a little harder knowing when it's done.
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of stages in this where I was like, is it done? And then I would do a little bit more. I'm like, no, it needed that. And then I would kind of go back and forth. And I feel like with almost anything, you kind of have that question in your head. Even when you're done with it, you're like, well, what if I just move that? What if I just put this here?
Right. Yeah, that's got to be hard.
It is.
And do you have anybody look at it and, that you trust?
I send pictures out to people. I send pictures to Charles,
Yeah.
generally, but he likes a lot of it. So.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's helpful.
Yeah.
I mean, I think somebody, my son has seen your work forever.
Yeah.
So he has a good sense. He
He's
owns your
an
work.
authority.
Yeah, in a way he is, I guess. Well, he's known you for a long time. So.
Yeah.
And so when did you first start drawing? Can you even remember?
Probably around two years old.
Just
But
right off the
you
bat.
can imagine how good it was at 2 years old. Not great.
Yeah, but there was interest.
Yeah.
Because Kathleen saw your work, you were probably 8
Mm-hmm.
in the dentist's office, your mom's office,
Yeah.
and came to me and said, "Oh, you really need to go see Josh's work." I'm like, "Really?" He's like 8 years old.
Yeah.
She goes, "No."
Who knows what she saw in it at
She
that
saw
point.
it though.
Yeah.
She definitely saw it.
I
Well,
don't know. She's got an eye for something.
yeah, she did. She goes, "Oh no, he's really good."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Okay,
Not at that stage.
sure." I'm going to
I
start.
don't think so.
I'm shopping for them early now.
Yeah.
You're the earliest one I've ever
Like
looked at their artwork.
weird little monsters. Weird little like
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings monsters.
Yeah, but there is. I mean, you can see it in people. I was
Mhm.
looking at somebody sent me a Dixon that was done when he was, God, how old? He wasn't even. He was like 15 or 14 or something.
Hmm.
It was so good. I'll have to show you an image of it. But it was like,
Is
my
it
God.
similar theme or is it something
No,
else
it's a house. It
entirely?
was his early
Huh.
house of his great grandfather's
Wow.
in Mississippi, and it was just intricately done, like really intricately done. And he was like, "Oh, this kid could really." He had it right back then.
Yeah, but he's very masterful draftsman.
Mm.
Like you can, I don't know. There's a thing with certain artists, you can see on one line sometimes how good they are if they know how to taper it. They get the really sharp end, and it's all about the pressure. They just do it right.
Mm.
He's one of those people I think you can see in a good line of his. You could see it.
Mm. So you can just see. You can see how he's laying it down.
Yeah, and well, I mean, part of it is it's very accurate, which is hard to do, but it's also done really fast
Yeah.
because he's getting the gesture of it. So it's not only accurate, but it's fast, and those are opposite things. And to do both of those, that's something else.
Yeah, that's what Dorothea said.
Yeah.
That he had these facile hands that could just move lightning speed,
Yeah,
and
I mean, you can see it.
and you can see it because you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so interesting. You can see that.
Mhm.
So when you do your paintings now, do you draw on the canvas or do you draw little studies or what's your process?
It changes, but I always Pretty much always I'll draw on the canvas. I do a kind of brown pencil,
Mm.
so it's not as dark as a regular pencil or charcoal. It's like a mid-tone,
Mm-hmm.
and pretty much try to get any detail I can at
Mm.
that stage.
And then if there's something you don't like, you can just erase it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And so drawing's important
Yeah.
then.
It's the building block. It's the
It really
essential.
is. And at art school, was that something they spent a lot of time talking to you about or not?
I mean, they definitely did, but it was my primary focus. I would say that because I realized if I was gonna be good at any type of art, that as good as I can get at drawing would be the way to do it.
Yeah. And so do you ever do it for fun? Just, I mean,
Drawing?
yeah.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, it's one thing I could see. I mean, people ask me, "Oh, is it fun to write?" And I say, "No." And
It's both.
yeah. So you do,
Yeah. It's a torture sometimes,
yeah,
and at other times it's ecstatic experience. It's
yeah,
like both.
yeah. Well, just to watch it come to
Yeah,
life.
yeah, yeah.
I know you doodle, or I call it doodle. You're actually working, but when you're like flying and all that, you're
Yeah,
always working on that, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So
Um,
yeah,
and at the Maynard Dixon show, I was doing that on the plane. I think you know this story, but some of the collectors who I became good friends with were sitting next to me,
oh yeah, you
and
told me this.
yeah, and then I saw them at the show later, and I was like, "What is going on here?"
They were flying in for that was the one.
Yeah,
That was that the first show? No, that was the second show you did because
I think so.
you had done my 25th anniversary or
Yeah,
something, and then you did that one. Yeah, yeah. You've been what? How old were you when you started showing? It was really early.
uh, the beginning of 2017, so 24. I
Yeah,
think Glenn Dean is the only one who was younger.
yeah. He was
Maybe
younger.
Jordan Walker's close. You know,
Yeah, and now you're an old man, almost 32. So
I'm not old.
so, but so anything else that you want to share about the process of drawing that you think that people would find interesting?
One of the things is that I see a lot of drawings, and I like most drawings that I see, but I wanted to make sure that I was making finished drawings. I wanted them to be a thing on their own as much as they could be, that they're not a prelim for a painting. That was
Right.
one of my main goals. And in doing the fine line and the dot work and kind of this really illustrative thing, I think it separates it a little bit.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's interesting to see what comes into the
Hmm.
show because we have 47 artists and
Yeah,
lots of work, and it's the variety. I mean, it's from very preliminary work that was for maybe a major painting, like Kim
yeah.
Wiggins did that. It was
Hmm.
a drawing for the thing that's in the Dayton Art Museum, a big
Wow.
major painting, like 30, 50 painting. But it's very interesting to
Hmm.
see that personally, just see that process. I think
Yeah,
that's very cool. All the way to, like you said, very finished. Susan Lyon. I
Hmm.
mean, Scott Burdick do some insanely finished
yeah,
things, and it's so it's going to be interesting to see that where people fall out. And you have
yeah,
three pieces, right?
yeah.
And they're all finished like that,
Uh-huh.
right? Yeah,
Yeah. Two ink and one graphite with gouache.
yeah,
So I tried to mix it up a little bit.
nice. And what I liked what you did is you put your painting frames on it.
Yeah, of
Yeah,
course. I mean, I want them to look right. It's
yeah,
important. Big old piece of plexi on there. And
yeah. The funny thing is that piece of plexi probably cost more than your first frames that you were doing when you
yeah,
started working
that's
with me.
yeah, that's uncomfortable to think about, but it's also
It's true
yeah,
though.
it's true.
Yeah,
But it's museum grade.
yeah,
It'll last forever.
yeah. And that's important too. People
Yeah.
need to realize. And
Hmm.
you have drawings, like we have lots of Dixon drawings. We try to get them, acid-free mats, plexi,
Yeah.
UV plexi. You can do glass too, but I actually prefer the UV plexi because if you got to ship like this thing,
They would break. It would have
yeah,
broke on the way
that
here.
piece will definitely break if you
Yeah.
were shipping that way.
And that day would have been one of the worst days ever
Yeah.
for everyone like involved.
Yeah.
And what if somebody got injured? You know?
Oh yeah, that too.
Yeah.
Just the whole shebang. So,
Hmm.
all right. Well, anything else before I just wanted to get a quick kind of view on how you see drawing. I know it's really important to your process.
Yeah. I think it's fundamental.
Yeah.
And I think you can say certain things with drawings that you can't say with paintings and
Mm.
vice versa. They have a different feeling.
Yeah. What is that? What's the difference?
I don't know. I think one of the major things is just the black and white kind of quality.
Mm.
That you get this stark contrast kind of no matter what you do. Whereas with painting, at least for me, painting you can be a lot more subtle with colors. Like there's a billion layers of color that can be more subtle. With drawing, you can be subtle, but it's always going to be this contrast, the interplay of the paper and the ink or the graphite or whatever.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love Dixon's drawings so much that this is part of the reason I want to do this show, just to see what people do and how they can do it.
Yeah.
And, when I see a really good one, I was like, oof. There's people out there that still take this art form seriously, and it's still important to what they're doing.
Yeah, it's less celebrated, but that doesn't make it less essential.
Yeah.
I
like that.
Use it.
Yeah, good. I use a slogan.
Yeah.
All right, Josh. Josh Gibson, thank you very much for bringing me a wonderful painting, a drawing. I guess, can we call it painting? I mean, they're a drawing, but to me, it's like a painting.
You can call it whatever you want.
Yeah, all right. I'll call it a painting drawing.
Drawing.
I mean, it feels like a painting.
The scale.
It's the scale. Well, just something. Yeah, the scale. It's the scale. Yeah, I mean, it stops you when you go, oh, wow. I mean, Dixon didn't do many that size. He did some. I'm going to borrow one for the show that's almost, maybe not that big, but it's big.
That'll be cool.
Yeah, so no one's got to see it yet. So.
Yeah.
Ever. So I'm going to try to have that out there. So there's your teaser to come see my show. All right. Thanks. Right on. Thanks, Josh.
No problem.
All right. You say Stedham, right? I'm saying it right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, just
yeah, you actually did that from the very beginning. You actually got my last name right.
Stedham, yeah.
Yeah, most people.
Yeah, I know. It's easy to screw up. And there's nothing worse than representing somebody and getting it wrong. Yeah. And I have done that. And I apologize to all artists that have done that too.
Yeah, I'm sure you didn't mean it.
No.
Yeah, of course.
That's why I'm just going to ask, make sure that I always get it right. Thank you. I have Kathryn Stedham here. And you, again, I snagged you from a 7.5 hour drive from Santa Fe, where you live, to here, said, I need you to talk about your drawings. And you said, how about tomorrow? And I said, how about in 30 minutes?
So here I am.
Yeah, so here you are.
Again.
Yeah. So, I talked to you about doing this drawing show maybe a year ago, probably?
Yeah, a little less than a year.
Was it less than a year?
I
can't remember. I've been working on it for at least a year, I think. And you said,
oh my gosh, I was flattered that you invited me.
Oh yeah, of course.
And then, at the same time, I think if I remember correctly, the first thing I said, are you kidding? I was like, because drawing is my first love.
Yeah, you love it, right?
Yeah, it was my first love. That's how I was introduced to art in the first place. So drawing has always been like the most important thing, especially during my formative years. And so have an opportunity
like a kid, right? Like when you say formative, like 3 up kind of?
Oh yeah, definitely.
And you were known as one of the artists in your class, I assume?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, most artists
I was like, weren't we all?
All the artists are generally.
Exactly.
I wasn't, but.
Yeah, it's like not paying attention in class, or the teacher's thinking you're taking good notes, but you're actually drawing all over your paper. Yeah.
Yeah, do you have any of those old scribbles and notes anywhere?
Yeah, not
long gone?
Not too much. Unfortunately, there's not much documented about my life because I had a, kind of vagabond childhood. So.
Yes. Yeah, that happens. Yeah. So,
I wish it was before cell phones. So I mean, we're talking 70s, Mark.
Yeah. No, I get it. No, I do understand. You look younger than your actual chronological age.
Yeah. Which I was thinking about it the other day. I was like, I've been producing work, painting, and drawing since the late 80s.
Yeah, it's a long time. It's 45 years.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I'm 55. I'll be 56 this year.
Yeah, there you go.
So a lot of people, some people don't realize that. So.
Yeah, no, I can see it because chronologically you are older than you actually appear. So when you do these drawings, we know you do them as a formative time frame. It was very important to you. But did that stay with you the whole time through this whole 45-year career, that you would reflect back on doing drawings, or just do them on occasion, or how has it played a role, if any, in what you actually do, which is a painter?
Yeah. As far as like how it comes about, I don't get to draw as much as I would like to draw. It's always kind of in the background of my mind because I see an image and it's like, oh, I'd really love to draw that. And I'll kind of explain how that comes about. So in my formative years, and we're talking about like young, but later in life. So my education in art came about very unconventionally. So I was selected to be in a magnet school program. In fact, it was a pilot program for the United States. I was in the first graduating class So I went to high school in the morning till about 11, and then I went to there was no schools yet, so I went to college. So I went to Old Dominion University and Norfolk State University, and I would work with professors there from like ninth grade up, and we would actually draw from life. So we had live models, and it was a funded program, so we had all this great and amazing material at our disposal, and we always had like still life setups. So like each week would have a different still life setup, and it was very traditional type of training. So I always like to say I have an atelier style training because you don't see much of that anymore. I mean, although I think it's made a comeback, and that is the emphasis is to draw from life. We're not looking at photographs or books. There's no digital media at this time, so it was like really strong light, the side lighting, and then you're really learning how to contour the form. So it's all about making something look three-dimensional. So since that's my training, all these years, fast forward to where I'm at now, that is kind of how I see images to begin with. It's like when I look at it, it's not a flat form. Even if I was to use like a photo reference or something, as how to make it look like an object in space. And the relation to space.
Will you take and do little drawings on, because like one of the pieces in the show, you went up to Mount Lemmon and kind of looked down at Tucson.
Yeah.
And, you did a big drawing for it. It's a magnificent drawing and a painting for it. But did you do any little small drawings at that moment, or just photographs and then you go back and go, okay, I'm going to do a drawing and then make it happen?
Yeah. In this case, I didn't do any preliminary drawings. I actually wanted to keep the drawing alive. And sometimes I find for me is like, if I do like compositional sketches, that's what I would use it for. It's just kind of to kind of like determine what the composition is going to be. But in terms of the freshness and aliveness of the piece, I kind of just go for it. And so that big piece of paper, the 30 by 22 inch drawing that you see, was just dead on. I just like go for it. And with that, I do it in charcoal. I use vine charcoal or very soft charcoal. I like that kind of medium because it's actually hard to control. It's extremely hard to control. It's like the stupidest thing you'd ever draw with for a show like this because it's hard to control. I like that.
You like the fact that it is hard to control because it pushes your abilities and what you want to produce?
Yeah, it's more like this. I was thinking about it as I was drawing because these drawings took quite a while. Actually, it was
I saw
it was a real slow build up, and I did. One part of it is I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know where I was headed, and I liked that. It was scary. It's like standing on the edge of a cliff, and you don't know, like you're jumping off, and you go, I don't know where I'm going with this. It is terrifying. And so and charcoal's kind of like that because I don't know how much I can control it. I like it in the sense that when I was drawing, I had the thought that my drawings, I draw like I paint. So the drawing, if you look at my drawings in the show, you'll see that like when you see my paintings, you'll understand like my drawings, I draw the same way I paint. I'm not a linear draw. I don't draw with lines, so it's not so much linear. You'll see deep shading. You'll see contouring. You'll see modeling of the form, which goes back to my early roots in school where I was like, we had to like draw from, like models like cones and spheres, and they were like plaster. They weren't even colored, and we'd have to like focus on how do you the hardest thing to do of all is like the mastery. It proves the mastery of an artist. And I tell sometimes when I'm teaching, I tell my students is paint an egg.
Yeah.
Paint an egg.
Yeah, it's hard.
That's the measure of an artist in your eye is paint. Have you painted the egg yet? Well, even more so, have you drawn the egg? So that's how.
Now I have to go try it, of course. It'll be a disaster, but maybe I'll try it.
That's how I see it. And, so I'm really challenged by the drawing. I'm challenged by painting, too. I like the challenge. So I don't want things to be made easy or known, or I look at it as kind of a problem to solve.
And it sounds like a little bit that you picked the charcoal because it also reflects kind of like paint, even though it's less forgiving and harder to do. It's not the straight lines things, but it allows you to do what you've done for so long as paint.
That's
and
right.
use it, right? Is that?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And then in the early beginnings, we would use charcoal. And I think it kind of harkens back to my beginning. We used to do, back in the old days in New York, they used to do the drawing marathon. And there would be these huge pieces of block paper that were on like walls. And I did it when I was at Old Dominion University. They gave us a house. They gave us art students a house that was being demolitioned as our art studio. Can you imagine that being like, I don't know, 15 or 16 years old, and they unleash us in a house, what us kids did in a house.
Yeah, that's going to be destroyed, so it's probably not very safe.
Yeah, so like we would paper it and, like wall-size block paper, that brown paper, and get these giant things of charcoal and just go crazy with,
fun.
doing these kind of wall-size murals. I mean, they weren't even murals, just drawings of things. I remember I would like blow my nose and there would be charcoal coming out because how safe is that?
Yeah, sounds pretty safe. Yeah.
Because there was so much charcoal dust in the air. And it's this really loose charcoal that's hard to, and I like it too because I don't just work additively, I work subtractively. If you look at my piece, you'll notice there's areas where I've pulled the light out. So if you think about drawing, most people think about it as additive, where you're like putting the lines down and you let the paper show through, the light show through. If you look at my work, you'll see that maybe I've put down the dark and I've then gone in and burnished back and pulled the light out. Well, if you think about it, it's the same as oil painting. As you paint from dark to light, and you're, as a painter, you're always, what do you paint? It's like the age-old thing from like the Renaissance painters. You paint the light. And so in my work, I really look for painting back the light. And even in the drawings, I'm trying to pull that light out
from it. Interesting.
Yeah. And, I was something else there, but
so you've now done drawings, which you haven't done in a while, right? I mean, it's a weird thing to get, even to come up with this show in an odd way, because artists, they don't think, I think, generally that their drawings have as much merit other than as part of the process, and so, but they love the idea. I think you probably like the idea of getting back to your roots. Yeah. But then you go, okay, I don't even know how to price these sometimes, right?
Right. Yeah.
So they're rare, which is cool.
They are rare. I actually had to kind of put my head around like doing a drawing as a finished piece.
Right. I get it.
But I like to do drawings. See, I think of drawings as like paintings are standalones and drawings are standalones.
Yeah, they can be, for sure.
So I I want them to have a very finished quality to them, and but also my work has a sense of the unknown, and I like that. So I think they mirror each other, the paintings and the drawings. It feels really good to me. Yeah.
You probably wouldn't have done that if you didn't have somebody going, I need this, right? As far as...
No.
It's interesting to see.
Oh my gosh, Mark. I was like, I was both excited at first and then terrified. And no, I was very grateful for the opportunity because
for sure.
No one's seen a drawing of mine probably at least exhibited in 30 years at least.
Yeah, and I think there's other people like that too, they're like, oh, I'm enjoying the process. It's hard, but I get to show what my chops are.
Yes. It's a great opportunity.
And for people who, want to collect, this to me is also that kind of thing that you can get a drawing by some of these individuals like yourself where like one of the drawings you have is like 3,800 full life size as the painting, and it's a fraction of what the painting is, which is, again, not great for you financially, time-wise, but I assume it's the challenge as much as anything, right?
Yeah, it's not always about the money. In
right.
fact, it can't be. I mean, it's really...
You're an artist, so it definitely isn't.
No, it's like, and I was very careful about what I chose to actually depict because I knew how many hours and months it was going to take.
Right?
So I was very committing, and you have to love it.
Right.
And I did. It was a great opportunity. I was very... I felt myself kind of emotional during certain periods of the piece because it just kind of, I don't know, it's opened up a different channel for me. Thank you.
Yeah, different creative
Yeah.
thing that you, I mean, that's where you began, right? That's the thing. That's where everyone began as a kid with crayons.
That's right.
Or whatever. And that's when you knew, I'm going to be an artist because of the drawing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably universal for every one of these artists. I can't imagine it isn't.
Yeah.
And then for some of them, they, take it as a career, just doing drawings.
Mm-hmm.
Very rare, mostly move on to other media or whatever. But to get back to that childhood, primordial area, I think feels good and interesting.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see all these artists. There's like 47 artists in the show, I think.
Wow.
And to get their take on that process, which you guys will end up, I'm sure, talking about a lot.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I think of this as a very important show.
Yeah. I do too, actually.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm so happy to be able to participate and to be here.
Yeah, and I wanted it to do these podcasts like this to get your take on that aspect of drawing and why.
Yeah.
Is there anything I've missed about drawing that you would like to share on this?
Yeah, I was thinking, there was some other thing hovering in there. I can't quite remember about it. It's just, I guess the other thing I would add about it is, there's a certain, for me anyway, there was a certain physicality to painting. So painting has a physicality. Drawing also has a physicality.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, I chose to draw pretty large.
Yeah,
and so
large, yeah.
Yeah, so when you take a look at my work, that'll be something that you note in my work as the type of physicality you see in it. I like, to scratch back. I like to buff. I like to erase back. I have a lot of positive and negative spaces that are interesting. And like the paintings, I want to make a beautiful stroke. I want to make, it's all about the mark making. And it kind of brings you back to it's both about the subject, but look past the subject and go deeper. Because that's what these paintings and drawings are meant for, especially these drawings and this opportunity is look for the thing that's beyond the subject even.
Yeah, it's the intimacy
and
of
it's see what you can discover in there with the marks and how it activates parts of you. I think it's very exciting.
Well, I'm glad that you're part of the show and that you found it exciting.
Thank you.
So I will we'll leave it at there, and we'll go back and now look at your paintings and talk about it. I call them paintings. These drawings that artists are doing, some are you just go, yeah, that's a drawing, but some of them, like yours, where you go, well, it's really a painting. It's so big and intricate and time. You can see the time that way. And I know in your case, because you'd send me little images periodically of here it's coming, and it's week 2.
I know.
It was like you're probably in your back of your mind going, I could have done a lot of paintings if I hadn't done this, right?
There was a lot of hours.
Yeah, right.
Some of them were done. I was just laughing. I was like, if you could only see me now, it's
right.
the glamorous part about being an artist. I was probably coffee cups stacked up
right.
and charcoal dust everywhere on my face.
Yeah. No, people think it's a glamour. It's like being a dealer. They think, oh, it's such a glamorous thing. I mean, I'm on my hands and knees 3 times a day looking at stuff, and that kind of thing. So, I mean, there's glamour in it, but glamour in the sense you're around great artists and wonderful art, but the same with what you're doing to produce it. It's a grind, it's a job. It's like, pipe fitting in a lot of ways. I mean, it definitely is not for the people you have to be brave to be an artist, to be honest. I think so.
Yeah.
No.
It's all in.
Yeah, there you go. Yep.
And
well, you're definitely all in
for a long time.
Yeah, for 45 years worth. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm grateful for every moment of it. I don't think my life would be my life. I don't even know what my life would have been. So
no, it wouldn't. Yeah, you had to be an artist.
Yeah.
It's nothing. I mean, you could have done something else. You were a rock climber, I believe.
Yeah.
Back in the day, I remember. See, I remember that first podcast. By the way, there's another podcast. People want to find out more. There's a podcast we did just on her life, which is quite interesting. But we're focused today on drawing.
Yeah.
Thank you. I do recommend using UV Plexi.
Okay, cool.
It's a tad bit more expensive, not a ton.
Do you think so? Could I send him here? Is there a framer, or do you know a framer that could
Just send him here.
Okay, cool.
if you don't mind me
I don't.
choosing the
Absolutely not.
frames. We're talking to William Haskell about framing drawings because we got a drawing show coming up, and that's the process, right? I mean, these are the little details that you have to worry about, and shipping things with glass or no glass or plexi, and where and how, and time's always an issue. And do you trust Mark Sublette to pick my frames?
I do. To answer that, I do. Absolutely.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, honestly, on drawings, things like this, we probably kind of just go with simpler, not break the bank frames as a general rule. There's a few artists who are going to put really expensive frames on, but their drawings are more expensive. So, it depends on the drawings. So.
Yeah.
When did you start drawing? Do you remember?
I started when I was about 4.
Yeah.
And so it was always something I loved doing, and I've always viewed it as, I still draw almost daily. It's just a work product, and these, of course, are going to be, I'm refining them a lot more. It's, I want to take them to a level where they're in between my work product and my painting. And so a lot of different values and gradations and things like that.
Is that normal, or is that a little bit more I'm taking it up a level just because of what the show is?
I'm taking it up because of what the show is. And on different paper too. And so I'm working on some Canson paper, different colors, just to have a difference,
to set it apart.
Absolutely.
And normally when you draw, because I know your process somewhat, you can do multiple drawings for a single painting, right? You do almost always?
Absolutely.
It always?
Yeah. I'll take a couple of days, and when I need to come up with...
I'll just tell you about this.
Sure,
that noise will... Pat, I'm saving you. So anyway.
So really part of my process is when I know I have some shows coming up, I will take 2-3 days, and all I will do is draw. And I'll come up with, 25 to 40 different drawings and some overlapping ideas, some same ideas, that kind of thing. But I'll try to have a number of different themes, especially if I'm doing a show that requires, like the show I'm doing with you, that requires, multiple pieces. I don't want a lot of repetitive subject matter. I want to try some different things.
And you do that through drawing?
I do that through drawing.
Right. And so you could have, for a show of 10 pieces, you might have 30 different drawings that you did before.
Exactly.
And that's just that's just a setup to go, I want this, and this, right?
Yeah, and then I'll pick the ones I feel the most connected to, that I feel like these are going to be the coolest paintings.
Right.
And then it's not that the other ones aren't going to be cool paintings, but for whatever reason, I feel connected to what I pick. And then later, maybe it could be a year later, maybe 2 years later, I'll thumb through the books and I'll be like, I never painted this. I think now's the time, and so I'll keep them as kind of an ongoing resource.
Dialogue.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
I'll work on them all the time. And then, in the painting I did for Barry, I did 3 drawings for it. That's my usual when I'm really examining a subject. I'll do like 3 of them.
And it's like small, medium, large kind of a thing? Or
for the size of it?
You do 3 drawings. Is it 3 separate drawings to go, this is kind of, I'm trying to figure out what it should be? Or is it, here's small, I'm going to make it a little bigger, and then I'm going to make it a little more fleshed out, and then I do my painting?
Okay, so, right. So I'll do a lot of, it's ideation. It's, they're just in a sketchbook, and then when I pick the other drawings, then I'll do them the size of what the painting's going to be, and I'll really refine them. Like they'll all be, I'll double check my foreshortening, and I'll really scrutinize the drawings, because that's what I'm going to make a transfer from and put it onto the panel that I'm going to paint with. So I'll make an initial study, and that'll give me the idea. And then when I choose that one, then I'll draw it out full size, and I'll, basically go through and make sure it's exactly proportionate. I'll look at it on the wall, that kind of thing.
So you'll literally have a drawing that's exactly the same size as the painting.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's interesting.
Definitely.
I think that's different from a lot of what a lot of people do.
And I'll keep them. I keep them rolled up in tubes, so I've got a ton of tubes of these drawings.
I bet.
And so, yeah, they'll be the same size as the painting. So, even a larger painting, it'll just be this big drawing.
And that's always your process.
That's always my process. Yeah.
And is that kind of always how you've worked?
Yes. And that's part of the reason it takes me a long time. And when I've had other artists come into my studio, they're kind of like, wow.
I'm sure.
Because it is for me. And the great thing about it, I look at it is I become acquainted with the painting.
Sure.
I mentally start to work through it, and I think it makes a more successful painting. It could just be overkill on my part too, but I think it
Your process.
really, and it just makes, to me, I get into a place where I'm really prepared to I've figured out what I'm going to do with this painting at that point, and so it helps. It helps.
So my guess is that you could do it without it, but your comfort level would not be good.
Yep.
You know,
it is about comfort level. Sometimes it's also about, with a panel that I have that I work with. I don't want to have to erase on it because it smudges really badly. It's really hard to get the graphite. Once if I say I have a complicated painting and I draw it freehand, which I can freehand it. I mean, I do everything freehand, so it. I could probably draw it on there freehand, but if I have to correct anything, then it's going to be a mess,
and it might show as well.
Right. Yeah. And so I like it to start off with a really as pristine of a surface as possible. It's just part of my personality.
Yeah. I mean, you do 20 to 25 layers of paint to make your things happen.
It's right.
Yeah. I mean, it's like working out almost. I mean, you have your workout, and that's what you do, and varying it throws the apple cart upside down. It seems like.
Yeah, and it is part of it. I've always said you're creating a self-portrait no matter what you're painting, and it really is. It really is part of how I'm wired, and I don't think I'll ever completely. I mean, I've really managed to simplify some steps so I can paint more efficiently. Which helps, especially on larger pieces. It just helps. But I'll never get away from it completely because it's like
that's who you are.
It's just who I am.
Yeah. Do you dream about this at night?
Not that much, but I do wake up at 2 a.m. thinking about it.
Yeah, you're dreaming about it.
Right. And I'll sit and think about it for an hour and a half or something. And
is it in a drawing form or a finished form or just more it's subjective?
It's a little bit of both. It could even be in kind of animated form, but it's most of it is kind of finished paintings that I kind of visualize it, and sometimes I worry about it or whatever. You think about all kinds of things.
Yeah, because you have a unique style. It's a very unique subjects and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, so it makes sense that you would be thinking or dreaming about these things at night, trying to work out the compositions because it's not. It's not realism, yet it is.
Yeah, I used to use the term magical realism, but it's also a lot of surrealism. In the recent the talk at the Mountain Oyster Club, I mentioned one of my earliest influences was Salvador Dali, and I always loved his work, and because he was technically so skillful, And that's probably what originally drew me to it. And then it was just really bizarre, and I liked it. It just spoke to me. And one of my favorite paintings was The Persistence of Memory, of course. And, I always use that as an example because, Angela and I, we have an ongoing dialogue about doing larger work. I'm like, look at The Persistence of Memory. It's a tiny painting, but it can take up the whole room.
Yeah, so is the Mona Lisa, too.
Exactly, yeah. So... It can have a big presence without necessarily being large in scale. Yeah. So I kind of look at even my small work, I finish them the same way I would a large painting. I want to make sure it has a big presence,
Yeah. Well, that's the perfectionist.
That's a quirk. But so surrealism, sometimes people say, what do you call your style? I think, modernistic surrealism, something like that,
I like that term.
Yeah.
I think that's right.
Because it is definitely, I definitely take a lot of influence from that first 50 years of the 20th century. Mm-hmm. And of course, modernism was part of that. And artists like Juan Gris, who was a cubist. And I love his compositional factors in his work,
Mm-hmm.
and that's really where a painting starts. I design it when I do those drawings. It's designed for compositional flow.
Yeah.
To
Yeah,
get that
it does.
to get that movement and keep you in the painting. Without that, I think you can be a great technician, but if you don't have a good composition, it's
Absolutely.
you've spent a lot of time on something that doesn't work.
Yeah, and I bet that's going to be the same for
Yeah.
your drawings. These
Yes.
complete drawings, they'll still have the same
Oh,
feel
absolutely.
of bringing you in.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, is this the first time you've ever had a show where your drawings were part of the show?
Yes. As a matter of fact, it is.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
I mean, it's such an ingrained part of your
Right.
persona
Yeah.
and how you do it in your process.
Right.
People ask for your drawings all the time to be included in this
Yep.
with their pieces. Yet, no one has ever done a show with you in
Right.
your drawings.
Yep. Oh, I think the reason for that is, you have a intellectual interest in art that goes beyond just money.
That's right.
And that's a big part of it because, drawings, of course, are behind glass. A lot of people don't like glass.
Yeah, there's all sorts of things.
Yeah, they don't. Maybe the paintings sell for more money. It's a really, so people don't they don't appreciate them as much as a painting, I guess. Right. I don't think they do anyway. I mean, maybe.
Yeah, and the funny thing is, the drawings are the most intimate fingerprint of the artist.
Right. Yes.
They are.
So then in your head it kind of turns it into, well, this is simply strictly my work product. I mean, until you talked to me about the drawing show, it was like, okay, well, and then I really started thinking about my drawings. I'm like, when I really sit and scrutinize them, they just don't look refined enough. So then I'm like, well, I'm going to have to do something more with them, So,
yeah, that was the goal of this show, is to have the artists think about it as well.
Right.
To value their own drawings more than they may have, and the general public to value them. I mean, this probably comes from Maynard Dixon, because I value his drawings so much, and others do too.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
And then all of a sudden you go, okay, I can see it from a different angle.
Yep.
Why aren't other people doing this? As you pointed out, I think a lot of it for other dealers, they go, well, I can't make enough money.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a money loser. I want give me the big paintings.
Right. True story. I mean, I think that's at the core of it.
Yeah. Yet it's the most intimate part of the entire process.
Right. And really, I mean, there's some artists that, and Dixon's one of them. You see his work in that, and you almost learn to appreciate the paintings more by looking at it. And especially when they're just a limited palette. There's times where I've thought about just doing a painting with a limited palette, kind of grayscale, and just creating a painting like that.
Mm-hmm.
But then I don't, because color is such a big part of my work, and it is.
And does it sit?
Right.
I mean, you put in 2 weeks,
right,
and people go, that's
yeah.
weird.
Right. Yeah. But I like that.
What,
but I want one of these.
So why don't you do one for my next show next year?
Okay, I will.
I mean, we'll find out together.
Yeah. Right.
Know?
Yeah. For sure.
It'll be interesting, no doubt.
Right.
It may open some door that you're not.
Right.
Don't know.
And some of that stuff is you just don't know until you try it.
And it's hard for a professional artist. They only have so much time in the day. You are, it takes you a long time to do your work. And anytime you vary it from what will be accepted by the general public, it's at risk.
Right.
For
sure.
But
and it's right. There's the but, and you don't want to. I mean, to be an artist is taking tremendous risk in the first place. So then you tend to get in this place. I'm like, well, you don't necessarily look for more risk.
Right.
And when something is working. Every year I try to add some new subject to my repertoire, because I don't want to. I mean, there are subjects I love painting, but I don't want to just sit and paint those subjects. Yeah, I think it shows more depth. It gives people more of a reason to collect, and it also, I think it's important to explore new. Yeah,
and for you, creativity.
Absolutely.
If it gets stale and old, then you become a technician.
Right.
And that's not fun. And we see that in different artists, and they get pigeonholed, and it's hard for them. I'm sure it happens to most artists to some extent.
Right. Because there's always those subjects that people absolutely love, and they're like, well, if I'm gonna spend that money, then I want this subject, you know, and,
Right.
and I kind of started running that with doing paintings with red pickup trucks in, you know, and people love them, and I love them too. I mean, I love vintage stuff, you know,
Right.
and transportation is one of them. But it's and a lot of times when I get a commission now, they'll, you know, I'll get a punch list and they'll say, I want a red pickup, I want this, I want this, I want this,
Right.
and I'm like, that's cool, I get it, you know, that's
Right.
those and it's not like I don't enjoy doing those paintings, but I wanted to make sure that if I kept doing those, I have a feeling after a while it would just be like
Right.
the red pickup
Yeah.
truck guy, you know.
Yeah,
So,
I love artists that continue
Yeah.
to push or whatever, and
yeah,
you know, like Josh Elliott, he's always looking to even it's a landscape
Right.
artist, but he's
Yeah.
always looking for a different angle, different sensibility, a
Yeah.
different subject. He doesn't
Yeah.
want to repeat himself,
right.
and it keeps it fresh.
Yeah,
Everyone, I know when I
absolutely.
have a good show for him, it's going to be fresh, even if it's
Yep.
one single subject matter. He'll explore it in
Yeah.
different variations, and
Yeah.
I think you do the same thing
Yeah.
in your
Well, thank you.
paintings too.
Yeah, he's a great painter and a great guy. I mean,
Yeah.
I do one show with him, or maybe two, and he's a
Yeah.
terrific painter.
Everyone's going to
Yep.
be a
Yep.
unique, different sensibility, whatever it's time, size, color, whatever, something.
Yeah,
You know,
for sure,
and
for sure.
I think most of my artists try to do that too.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
that's why they're good.
Right, you have to, and really, I mean, you know, and we talked about this a little bit the other night. You know, when you get a commission, and you know, I talked about the first commission I got was a 7-page letter from now a very, very dear and close friend and collector, and you know, the gallery's advice was to not do it, and I was like, wow. I said, well, I'm going to do it, and it was probably one of the best things I did as an artist, because it really pushed me. And so sometimes to take on a unfamiliar subject or things that you're not completely comfortable with, of course, it's going to make you work hard, and you're going to be a better artist.
Yeah.
And so that's just,
We're going to see one next year with the monochromatic.
Yes.
It'll be monochromatic, but it won't. It'll be so
Yeah.
many different shades of
Right.
gray, white, brown, whatever it is. I'm sure.
Yeah.
It'll probably be harder than anything
Probably.
you've done.
Probably so.
You know,
yeah.
because you'll be searching to try to.
Right.
It'll have to work on texture and other
Yep.
things too.
Well, you know, it's one of those things. When I really stopped working from, and I use photography a little in my work, but not very much. When I stopped working for photography, the hardest part was just to give it up, you know, and to, because you rely on it so much, and then when I stopped doing that, it was there was a real it was a real separation and kind of anxiety to it. So sometimes it's hard to make a real shift like that, and so I'm so used to using a lot of color that it'll probably be a little. I'm sure it'll be challenging.
Yeah.
But that'll be good.
And when you gave up photography, you relied more on drawing, probably.
Yep, and just my imagination
Yeah.
and you know, my memories, and it was one of the best things I ever did. For my art. I mean, everybody's different, but
And then it rewires your brain too, which is good too.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
you
yeah.
think more creatively
You
in
do,
a different
you do.
way. You're
Yep.
forced to, and once those neurons get hooked in, then you can do it easier, and then
Right,
opens
right.
up different things.
Absolutely. Yeah. It made me better with drawing, and it made
I'm
me
sure.
more creative with that,
Yeah.
you know, and it just made me a more creative painter. But
Yeah.
and that's not to take away from artists that work with
Everybody
photography.
has their
It's very
process.
common. It's a
Yeah.
very common practice. I
Yeah.
mean, and I'll still work if it's a brand new subject, or if there's a lot of foreshortening and these different angles that I need to be accurate on. I'll work with photography as
Yeah.
a resource. So
Yeah,
it's just
why
part
wouldn't you?
of the deal. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, we got a show tonight. Your other show.
Yep.
And then this will be for our drawing show. Thank you for spending a little
Absolutely.
extra time. You got a long day with us today. I'm
Yeah, that's
afraid.
okay. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah,
It's
thank
been a
you.
real pleasure.
William
Yeah,
Haskell.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. I know, here we are again, right?
Yeah.
So I have Whitney Gardner, and we're going to talk about just your process of drawing, because this is for our drawing show. And you brought us a wonderful drawing of, what kind of flower is that?
San Pedro cactus blooming.
San Pedro cactus
Yeah.
blooming. And is that the ones that just bloom kind of like once a day, for a day,
Yeah.
and then
They bloom once a year, usually late summer, early fall.
yeah,
And they bloom at night.
Yes.
So they're nocturnal blooms.
So they
usually,
call it a night blooming cirrus. Is that another name for it, I think, maybe?
possibly, yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So a lot of the paintings I do of those, I usually will include a moon or have it in like a nocturne setting because they bloom at night, and that's kind of a really beautiful gesture in a way. So yeah, they're interesting. They're powerful cactus. They also have mescaline in them. Yeah, so they've been used for ceremony in Mexico.
Yeah. And so the image that you used, was that taken off an image that you had taken a photograph or seen, or did that come out of your mind? Or
No, I had a number of San Pedro cactus blooming at one of my previous houses that I planted. And so every year I'd wait for them to bloom and I'd get my images. And so I have like a really great collection of reference of that same cactus that would bloom every year. And so that image was drawn, I think I had 2 references and I combined 2 to just make the composition.
And but you took photographs originally?
Yes. Yeah.
And then, because you told me on this one too, which is interesting, I thought it was very interesting. You just kind of freehand drew the cactus.
Yeah. For the drawing, for the study, for me, if I'm working in like, about this size, I can freehand really easily and,
So
like
12 by 16 kind of thing.
Yeah. And it just kind of, it feels natural to me. And so when I transferred that for the painting, like for more of the studio composition of that drawing, I just took a photo of my drawing, then put a grid to it, and then transferred it onto the canvas, which was a really loose grid. I don't like tight grids. It's too many lines. So I just kind of get the proportion lines in and then go from there.
And so when you started drawing, I'm guessing you're probably one of your earliest memories, right? Probably 2, 3, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah, I remember distinctly the first time I realized what drawing was.
Yeah? When was that?
I must have been 3, because it was like the first house we lived in as a family, and my older brother, Lucas, who's 6 years older than me, was great at drawing. And he drew, and he's still an artist, but he was drawing dinosaurs. And he let me draw on the same page as him. So I was watching him draw dinosaurs and, maybe like guys with guns, like what, a 8-year-old would draw. And I remember just thinking, like, just connecting with that and then like trying to draw. And so kind of growing up, I always was trying to mimic what my brother was doing.
And did you draw the whole time, like in grade school, high school, college, all that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, some of my early memories also just spent time alone with finding a piece of paper and found some pencil somewhere. And I was like, okay, I'm entertained for the next 2 hours or so. And then I've kept it up. Like I draw every day still in the sketchbook. Yeah.
And are those references for future work, or are they also just enjoyment?
Both. I mean, for me, if I'm working, it's enjoyable and I'm trying to get an idea out. So I start with thumbnail sketches in a sketchbook with like no expectation, that's why they can come out and they're usually fast, and then I'll draw it again and I'll draw it again and I'll draw it again. So for me, there is no difference between drawing for painting or composition and enjoyment. It's all
one together.
The same thing, yeah.
But you probably haven't really sold a lot of drawings, right? Because they're working pieces of what you do, right?
Yeah, I've never
right?
never made them available. No, because
so this
they're
is the first
vulnerable.
time then, right?
Yeah,
okay.
They are. I feel like, the artist's hand is in a drawing so definitely, that there's nowhere to hide. It's, it's like your exact mark. And even in the process of making my work for this show, I kind of thought, okay, I'm going to do charcoal. I'm going to do something different. And I just didn't feel like I was coming through enough. And I, was like throwing drawings away. And then when I just like had to like boil it back down to like, how do I draw every day? And most of the time that's in a sketchbook with a mechanical pencil. So that's what I just thought, okay, I'm just going to see where I can go with just making something so pure, very genuine, and very vulnerable kind of. And that's where I saw like myself come through in like a larger drawing. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do all of them in the same way. Yeah. So I didn't use any high grade charcoal or anything like that, just pencil. Yeah.
And did you have to be in a different mindset to do that than painting?
For me, it felt similar. Painting, I'm making more judgments per second, you know, with like the color and the brushstroke and relating my reference and that kind of thing. Where drawing, I felt like most of those drawings I could like, you know, one of them I was talking to my grandmother on the phone while I was drawing, and I could engage with her while I was still working because there was less, I was deciphering less, there was less choices, you know, where I'm painting, I can be like, hold on, I need, you know, more of my brain. But drawing kind of was actually more meditative. There's all I'm doing is making lines. I'm not thinking about color, or I'm just making lines and shapes.
And it's ingrained, obviously. I mean, if you draw every day and you've been doing this for nearly 40 years, it's reflexive, I would think.
Yeah, I think there's still room for discovery in it for me, you know, and even the drawings I taped up onto a board so I can stand back from them, and I come back to them every day and be like, the values need to be darker or lighter, because sitting in front of it for me, I can go, I think that looks all right. So I didn't call it done for, you know, a few days. So I had some time to like see it from a distance and get it right. But you know, but just little things that there are to discover, and little moments of, you know, having your hand really make a heavy line and having your hand make a light line.
And when you, because to me, again, I'm not an artist in that sensibility, but when you're drawing and you go, oops, I mean, there's something that just wasn't, that wasn't exactly right. Do you erase that, or do you go, nope, it's going to stay there, I'm going to work around it, or I'm tossing this?
I erased a lot.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I mean, some of it just be like, these lines are just, you know, they just look.
Don't work, right?
Yeah, whatever it is. And I, you know, lighten it and go back over and like, these lines, yes. Those lines, you know, it's hard to really describe why, but.
Can you see that eraser mark in there? I mean, I know you know it's there, but can you? I don't think I could.
I make it so that you can't.
Yeah.
I mean, if I were to really sit and try to pull out like where the erase marks are, but that bugs me. Yeah, so I wasn't gonna like allow that. So at those areas, you know, add a leaf or you know, whatever, something. Make it like yeah.
And so did you discover something doing this project of 5 drawings for the show?
Yeah.
Yeah, what was it?
That my materials can be simple. Like I said, I was using just a number 2 mechanical pencil. And I had, you know, and I have all these great, you know, other dry medium, and it just doesn't feel like what I wanted to have come through.
Yeah.
And so the simplicity in the material is something that I like maybe learned about myself and letting go of. Like, it doesn't need to be anything different than what I already know, just the simplest material. And what really needs to come through is my sensibility.
Who you are.
Yeah.
And so you feel like when these drawings are more personal? Was that a true statement?
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, there's nowhere to hide. There's no, I mean, it's very much my hand, and I wanted that to come through, even if they maybe, you know, in some areas doesn't look completely perfect. It's a drawing, and the idea needs to be able to come through. And when I look at drawings from some of my favorite artists, like a Maynard Dixon, it's like, I can see his hand. I can see the vulnerability in this line, or just the truth of it.
That intimate relationship.
Yeah.
I do feel that when I see drawings, that there is an intimate sensibility that the artist is letting you into their world, how they see it at that moment. And for somebody like Dixon, who's so fast, right? I mean, he was so quick with what he did. I mean, it's literally his eyes. You're seeing through his eyes.
Yeah. Yeah. And every mark has, has potence to it.
Yeah.
Or, same with oil painting, but you cover up so many marks.
Right.
And with drawing, you just can't do that. So it comes through. Yeah.
Yeah. This is why I think I wanted to do this show, is for that self-recognition of what you see in it that you might not have seen before.
Yeah.
And permission for you to do it as something to show as art, because it hasn't been for you. And almost all of them, they're like, oh, well, these are things I use to work with, or I do, and they're, not something I envision as being art in the sense of selling it.
And I feel like through seeing drawings of all the artists in the show that you don't usually see,
Ever.
you're going to learn about them. Like, that's
Absolutely.
what I'm excited about. I feel like, oh, this is how Howard Post handles a drawing, or this is how, like, you learn about them more in my, visual perspective. Yeah.
It's almost like reading a book on them in a weird way.
Yeah.
Description
Yeah.
of them through their drawings.
Or opening their sketchbook. Like seeing that rawness and that honesty.
God, I should have had everybody bring sketchbooks.
Well, then they'd be like, oh, he's going to steal my idea.
Yeah. Now, I'm sure there would be some. No, but sometimes you never know how that is. But it would be interesting to have. I wonder if it's not too late, but to put people's, where they can't touch it, but just open.
Like a selected page.
Yes.
And
so they can see it.
I'd be open to that.
Bring it.
Okay.
I have a place where I know what I can do with it.
Have it in my truck.
Oh, cool. Great.
Of course I do.
Of course you do. Well, you live out of your truck in some instances. That's what you do. You're painting and drawing, and I don't know if you're drawing. Were you drawing last night when you were doing? You were doing plein air stuff, right?
Yeah, I was doing plein air, and then I was writing. So.
Yeah.
But I didn't sit down and sketch.
Yeah.
It was too rainy.
Yeah. And writing for you is critically important to what you do as far as painting too, right?
Yeah, I focus on writing haiku mostly. I like the form. I like that it's short, and it shows me, in 17 syllables, you have to make an impact. And also it's like, okay, in 17 inches, you have to make an impact. And what in your environment is going to allow the most interesting things to come through and make an experience. And haiku teaches me that.
And do you do that before you paint or after?
Sometimes it's like I'll set up and start painting because I'm excited. And then, I think about what words come to me, and I'll sit down and write, or, it's never the same.
But it's always haiku versus, let's say, just a song or comes to your mind?
Well, I write songs also.
Yeah.
But that's not when I'm painting. When I'm driving, I write songs.
I get it.
Yeah.
I totally understand.
Yeah.
And when you say you write them in your head, sing them, and then maybe they're gone or maybe they're not?
I record them in
Oh,
my
smart.
phone, and I sing the melody, because when I write a song or hear a song,
I get it.
all the pieces are there. So I hum things, and then I get on the guitar and figure it out later, which I never share with anyone. It's just for my own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you shared one little bit on
A little bit.
Instagram.
I'm a
like,
fireside musician.
Yeah, I was like, oh, she sings too.
Yeah.
What doesn't she do?
I give myself the opportunity to at least try, even if it's not good. It's like, well, what are you gonna lose? Nothing.
Nothing, and it's creative for you, and you enjoy it. It's all the same continuum. It's just a different media. That's all. I get it. I completely, utterly get it.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to share about the drawing or drawing process for the show?
No, but I'm definitely more interested in doing more large scale drawings. And by large scale, I don't mean
No, I get it.
huge, but outside of the sketchbook,
Right.
and outside of whatever pads I usually use. It's really inspired and motivated me to explore that more.
So my job's done.
Right.
Really, I mean, in
Yeah.
a weird way, right?
Yeah. Because I liked what I saw coming out. I don't usually, you know, my drawings aren't as refined, and I wanted these to be like take them further.
Right.
And I like this.
What gives you permission? Maybe the show gives you permission to explore that.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, and you know, there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of great artists in this show. It's like, okay, gotta hold my own in a way, and not saying that I will or anything like that. I get it. But in my own way, like I gotta be proud of this in some way.
There's a lot of people that feel that too. It's like, oh, Thomas Blackshear's in here. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
these trained illustrators, and I'm not. I'm a painter. Yeah. So that's what my takeaway is.
Yeah. Well, I think that's great. Yeah. No, that's just it makes it worth me doing this show, and to see it. It's going to be very interesting to see all this artwork, all these drawings by such unique individuals that have the same thing, I think, as you do. Oh yeah, I remember when I started drawing. I was young. Oh yeah, no, that's part of what I do. That's who I am. I mean, it's the most intimate thing of an artist in a lot of ways. For sure, Dixon it was.
Sure, because as a young person or a young artist, what you can find around the household, right? It's like a crayon, and you found some paper, and like you're gonna explore that where you don't usually, have paint at your disposal. You have crayons. It's like this is your first thing to figure this out. Right. So I think it goes down deep into the soul of all of us.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, it's ingrained for sure. All right. We're gonna go out and look at your painting and your drawings, and thank you. And I want to get the sketchbook.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. Whitney Gardner. Thank you. Howard, I just wanted to spend a little time with you because you're coming up to this drawing show, and I thought I'd just talk a little bit about drawing with you. And, drawing for you started early. I remember you won like a class, you won a citywide award, right, for drawing. You were like third grade?
Third grade, yeah.
Yeah. And it was drawing, right?
Yeah. I don't know that my drawing was any better than any of the other kids, honestly, but it was interest. It was of my dad, who was a cowboy, and he was out hunting, had a nice story to it. And so they got the award, So.
But in your own mind, I'm sure you thought, okay, well, I have some talent of some type. I mean, you knew you were good with horses and things like that, obviously. But you're the only artist in your family, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, that encouraged me, Our joke in the family is luckily it wasn't a singing contest,
Unless you would have done well. I don't know. You could be a nice baritone, even bass, aren't you?
Yeah, probably am, yeah.
Yeah.
But they say the only thing harder to make a living at than art is music, So.
Unless they know a writer, and then the writers will say
or
that.
Or writing, yes.
Yeah, I think that's the hardest.
So, but we feel fortunate.
Yeah. And so how did drawing kind of affect you, or how did it was part of your career in what you're doing and even doing today? I mean, because to me, it's such a fundamental component of being an artist. I mean, at least that's what it seems like. I'm not, a painter, or, I don't draw, but.
So also after that third grade experience, then I drew all the time,
Yes.
And clear up into high school, I did a lot of drawing, and so that was.
Was it still cowboy and western kind of?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, pictures of rodeo cowboys and.
Right, which you wore one.
Yeah, and then about the time I went to college, I started going out to my folks' place and doing on-site drawings of the corrals and so forth,
And we have a drawing in the show that's from 1975, which was that before your master's?
Oh, yeah. Let's see.
It's right in there, right?
Yeah, somewhere there.
Kind of right when you're finishing your art degree, I would think.
Yeah, so I had worked as an illustrator by then as well. And so drawing was a key thing. I did a lot of like finished drawings for illustration, So I got pretty skilled at drawing, quote.
Right.
Skilled, but.
Well, it is a muscle, isn't it? Don't you think, to some extent, really?
Just practice.
Right. Yeah.
And so all during that time, drawing was really important, and then into my painting, drawing was important. My wife laments that I don't draw as much anymore,
Mm.
you know, because I mean, I'm busy trying to get paintings in, but I mean, I do
Right.
do preliminary drawings,
Right.
but I don't finish them off like I used to.
Yeah, because they are a way to do what you really were trying to do, which is
Yeah.
paint. It allows you to, like you did this big, huge mural for one of our clients, and you did drawings for that to get the layout, to let them see it. I'm sure in that particular piece, it was very important to have those drawings.
Yeah, I mean, we nailed it down pretty well in terms
Right.
of detail and scale and
Yes.
so forth.
You
And
still have those drawings?
I gave it to
Good.
them.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, it's still important, and that's a key thing. But I know artists who have done well for long careers who don't draw at all. You know. So.
You want to name them?
I don't. They're friends. I don't want.
They probably won't be on my drawing show. So
So to say that it's an essential thing, I've heard that said that you can't be a great artist unless you can really draw. Well, I'm not sure I believe that. You know.
how about you? Could you do it without drawing?
Probably not as well. You know.
Yeah.
You can learn to manipulate the paint and
Right.
and
It'd be different. There'd
Yeah.
be something different about it.
and there are artists who never use a pencil or graphite to do preliminaries. They start right on a canvas with paint.
Right.
And they draw with the paintbrush. You know.
Yes, and I've seen those individuals,
Yeah,
and
so-
some of them are amazing.
Yeah, that is amazing, and I just I guess I enjoy the process of.
Yeah, I would
and,
think.
And I'll redo my drawings a lot, so I'll do it on a thin kind of-
Vellum or something.
yeah, and then if I don't like it, I'll lay another piece of vellum on top of that and redesign it or rework a certain area, and then do a composite where I have a couple drawings that I've taped together, or you know, if it's only for my use.
Right.
And so the way I do that is after I've done the preliminary, which is 8 to 10 inches possibly, I'll photograph with my digital, and then I'll project that little drawing onto the canvas, whatever size I want.
Right. So you can get
Yeah.
the foundation of what you
Yeah.
want, which all came out of your brain.
Yeah. So I know artists who still draw directly on their canvases, which I admire that, but think of the time it takes. If you make a mistake, you gotta erase out right on the canvas, you know.
Right.
So
Yeah.
well,
There's a few of them, and we'll interview them at the show
Yeah.
that do it. I think it's kind of how John Moyer paints. I think he draws directly on the canvas most of the
paint?
time. Yeah, he'll do paint. I think he also does some graphite. But yeah, he just draws it out. I've seen him do it. It's unbelievable.
does he have some graphite drawings for the show?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He'll have some, and Terry both.
Yeah.
And they do make drawings and doing different things, and it's part of their process, obviously. And John was an illustrator as well.
Yeah.
So anybody who was ever an illustrator had to have drawn to some extent. And we have a lot of those people that'll be in the show,
Yeah.
like Blackshear and Eric Bowman and
So
Ezra Tucker and those.
in my
kind of-
career growing up, Blackshear was the high water mark, for guys, you know.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? Yeah, I mean, it doesn't surprise me because he's so talented, and he switched into this Western art, relatively recently, and I think has made amazing inroads.
Yeah.
But it comes again from this process of drawing and being illustrators. They really do seem to have an edge almost in a weird way.
Yeah. Pretty good percentage. I've been involved with illustration, and
Yeah.
of course that's where you learn drawing, because you
Yeah, you had to.
had to show the clients the preliminaries.
Right.
And at least back in my time, there was no computers to do a digital
Right.
reference for them, So, yeah, it's an interesting process.
Yeah.
I'm glad to be part of that show. I think it's really cool idea you had to get a lot of artists. How many are in it?
46.
46. Wow.
Yeah, 46 different people. And I also have some drawings from Ed Mell
Oh,
from
yeah.
the estate as well. So he'll be in, because he would have been in it for sure.
Oh, yeah.
So it's my kind of homage here. You're going to,
Yeah, yeah.
and then we'll have Maynard Dixon. I don't know if there'll be much for sale, but really just to show, some of his masterpiece drawings. I have some drawings, and I'm hopefully have a big painting that came from a small drawing so they can kind of see the process. Because he was very much about doing drawings. I mean, he did 10,000 drawings probably, right? But he only did maybe 1,500 paintings tops.
You need to borrow my drawing?
Yeah.
Of his.
So yeah, we probably are good on that because I've rounded up a couple of his big, huge masterpieces that have not been seen, which will be kind of cool to have them exhibited.
Drawings or?
Drawings.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, drawings.
Cool.
So yeah, the show is interesting. It's, and I wanted to do this podcast with different individuals that are in the show just to get their take on their relationship with doing these kind of things and the history. And you're started at third grade. You're still doing it. Now it's more toward commissions or things like that. But interestingly enough, in the last couple of years, we've done quite a few sales for you things that have been in your drawers.
Yeah.
That I remember when you brought in some, you go, I don't know if these have any value. Marilyn said might. I'm like, yeah, these are great. They sold immediately because they're cool and they show the process and they're really just finished little paintings
Yeah. Yeah. It was fun to find them,
Mm-hmm.
I would not have thought of doing that, but
Mm-hmm.
my wife has lots of good ideas.
Yeah, as most of them do.
And over the last few years, I've been doing little drawings for my grandkids for their birthdays. She's
Full circle.
She's moving me up to little watercolors for the grandkids.
Versus drawings, they have to be watercolors.
So
Yeah, and the pieces that we have in the show are interesting too because quite a few of these, in fact, all of them but one are pieces that you've done over your lifetime, starting with one that was from 1976 or something to that effect. That's your backyard, right? It's your corrals of your home, right?
Yeah, the corrals back home.
And some Bronco Busters, from that was done when, 1980?
I'd say 80s.
Yeah.
That's the thing about having those stored away for so long. I didn't always document
Exactly.
dates and stuff, but we can.
Though even the ones from 76, I can look at that signature and know that's your early signature. Because that's like, oh, that's an early one.
Yeah.
There's, like you evolve with your art, but you evolve with your signature.
Yeah.
Too.
Is that true of most artists?
All of them.
Yeah.
Every one of them I've ever met. Yeah. Well, it makes sense, right? I mean, you were telling me in 1977, you're wearing, as we started this, bell-bottom pants and and a beard.
Had a big beard.
You're not doing that now,
No.
right? So you've evolved a bit from that. And I think artists do the same. I think they do. I think they evolved in lots of ways. I mean, everyone I know. I mean, how Ed started with that same kind of block lettering, just like yours for H Post. Just almost exactly the same. And
Then he went to a little bit of scroll on.
and then it went just like a flow of whatever that was. So now I do want to talk a little bit about that one painting. We talked about it in a video out there, but just the one that you did in the 80s of the I guess they're jackets basically, slickers and the hat.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I call that star cap and Stetson.
Okay, because the cap has a star.
Yeah. And of course a Stetson hat.
Is a Stetson hat.
I thought it was poetic. I don't
Yeah.
know.
It is.
But
Very post-like.
yeah, that's ever since the drawing, which I did way back. That's been floating around in my mind. I've never felt it was so different from what I've been doing normally.
Yeah, especially in that time frame too. Really,
I resisted doing it. I mean, there was so much else going on, but
right.
It just felt like it was time to crank it up.
Yeah, and that was a 1980 mixed media drawing, right? Small, it's 2x4 or something like that. Really powerful little piece, and then you built it out to this whatever that is, 2448.
2448.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. I was telling my son earlier when we're looking at it, and he agreed. It's like a masterpiece. I told you that too. I think it is. I really do. I mean,
thanks.
There's so many things about it that I like, and it's interesting that something that powerful, in my opinion, I've represented you for almost 30 years, originates from a thought that you had 45 years ago.
Yeah.
And then you finally got to the point where you go, yes, that's what I need to be able to do it. You knew then, you just weren't there, I guess. Comfort level, maybe.
I don't know why, just,
you think it's a comfort level, maybe even?
I think it was just so different from what the other things I was doing,
Yeah,
which was, I was doing a lot of overhead pieces and big corrals and so on. So
Right.
sort of throw in that seemed
Right.
didn't feel right at the time.
Yeah, because people go, I want your horses, I want
Yeah.
your corrals,
Yeah.
I want your clouds, I want the house, I want
Yeah.
the trees,
Yeah.
and what's this?
Yeah.
You know, and it's the what's this I find to be the most interesting
Yeah.
sometimes.
That's probably true of
Yeah,
most
a lot of them.
artists, isn't it?
Yeah, all the ones I can think of have had those moments of clarity where they change or do something a little different. Your fence posts that are just abstract art, as far as I'm concerned, with you know, the lined up against the you know, wall, they're just brilliant, and they're modern, very modern.
So not everyone has agreed with my sensibility about that. You know, I mean,
I'm sure.
they're not the best sellers. You know, the fence posts lined up, or
Yeah,
you know. So thanks for calling it a masterpiece. I
Yeah,
I
no,
would
it's
never
true.
say that, but you
yeah,
know,
no, it is.
uh,
Well, I mean, you know, look at Ed Mell when he starts doing flowers. People are like, "What?" And then he does abstract flowers, and they're like, "Oh, I don't want those. I only want the ones that look like a rose." Right? I remember that. Like, "Oh, we want the rose. You got a rose? Oh, no, that stuff that's all fractile and stuff.
Yeah.
No, I don't get it." And now it's like, "Oh,
yeah.
give me that."
We have a print of Ed's Unhead Rose, you know, which is my wife's favorite piece ever. You know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So yes, I think yes, I do think it's a masterpiece, and it's a painting that took a long time to come to fruition. And what does it do? It comes from a drawing.
yeah.
So
It's been fun. Well,
Yep.
well, thanks for having me.
yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be fun to have this show, and you know, we're doing this podcast, so 50 years from now, you know, hopefully I'll still be looking at these things and understanding if anybody does drawings at that point in time, which we'll see if they do. I don't know. Maybe it'll all be AI generated, and you take that and you're just working with AI generation stuff.
So I still subscribe to the graphic design and illustration annuals,
Mm-hmm.
Communication Arts, just to see what's going on.
Yeah.
And they have an annual every year of the best illustration. Probably 80+% of those are digital now, you know.
For the best illustrations
Yeah,
are digital.
yeah. There's still some guys painting and so on, but
Yeah.
majority are digitally
Yeah.
produced. You know.
They had to. I mean, they switched over.
And that's an art, I'm sure, you know, to do that.
Oh, of course. I mean, it's just like anything. I mean, it's like comics and where they've come and all this other. I'm sure it'll. I mean, that's why I said 50 years from now or
AI,
whatever, they're going to
AI.
be looking at this and trying to understand why that somebody felt that they needed to draw to make an image that they could just go make a Howard Post graphite drawing with reds and greens, and which they can do now actually. But
My kids brought up Howard Post on AI.
yeah,
It didn't do it visually, but it did it verbally, and that described my paintings, you know.
that was interesting.
It was.
Was it positive?
Yeah.
Was it kind of on the mark?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I was surprised. I mean, I know nothing about AI, you know, but the kids
But AI knows about you.
apparently, yeah. Yeah.
Well,
So how many of the artists are coming to that show? Have
you
heard?
know, I wouldn't surprise me if the 40 showed up.
That would be fun.
Yeah, I mean, I got enough food set aside for that many. So, and their spouse or significant other. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's going to be just crazy. I think it's going to be really great. This is for those that actually are listening to it in current time. That's going to be February 15th of 2025. So, if you are listening to this in 2030, you can go to the video component and see what we're talking about. So, all right, Howard.
That'll be cool.
Yeah, very soon. And we have your show coming up too. So, which is on Maynard Dixon's birthday, January 24th, 150th birthday.
Wow.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, it is going to be very
I'm
cool.
honored.
Yeah, no, it seems. Well, I have to ask you a question. You've been in my museum, right? What do you think of the painting Wild Horses, Nevada?
One of the top 3 ever, maybe, in my opinion, for him.
Do you know when you might have seen that for the first time, that painting?
It was in the Autry, right?
Yeah,
I went to the Autry years ago.
yeah,
I think that was the first time I saw it.
yeah. But it would have been in the last 25 years, probably.
Yeah.
Probably. I mean, the reason I ask this is I've had 20 people go, that looks like a Howard Post.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 20 people. at least. And I said, I doubt he saw it until later, because that's Howard just kind of came up with his own world.
I've had that quite a few times over the years. That hey, you look like Maynard Dixon. The first times they said that, I'd never heard of Maynard Dixon.
Yeah.
Because typical colleges like the University of Arizona,
Right.
they don't teach regionals.
Right.
Western regionalists.
Right.
They don't talk about them.
No.
We're talking about abstract expressionists, which I enjoyed as well. But so talking about Maynard Dixon didn't come up, you know.
Yeah.
But once they kept saying that, then I sought him out to see what
Yes.
he was about.
Yeah. Yeah. Go down there and go to the museum and go look at that painting and see if you see any resemblance of your paintings. So it's funny. I think it's a great honor, you know, when somebody says that. It looks like and people have said, is that Howard Post? And I'm like, well,
Wow.
It's not, but he's that good.
They,
and as you said, it's one of his top paintings he ever painted.
Yeah. The other one I remember seeing a little bit later, somewhere in there, was the one in the Phoenix Museum, the old miner shack.
Yeah.
Whatever that's called.
Yeah. I forget it at the moment as well. Yeah, it's a 30-40 piece.
Yeah.
Desert Rat.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah, 1945, 46 time frame, yeah.
I'm not sure which of those I saw first. To be honest.
Well, you probably like the big mountain and the small kind of cabin. That I could see that appealing to your sensibilities. So many of your paintings, especially I think in the late 90s and early 2000s, had that small cabin and the cottonwoods kind of feel.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Anyway, well, thanks for talking
absolutely.
about this stuff.
We covered a few topics, and I'll let you get out of here. Go back home.
My voice is just as boring as it's always been. So, can you speed that up for me?
Oh yeah, I would only play at 1.5x with any of our conversations.
Good.
Yeah, and then you sound like this. You're going, yeah, Howard's very good. Yeah. I actually don't even listen to my own podcast unless it's playing at least 1.25 or 5. Yeah, because it's just I dread to hear my voice going so slowly.
My kids will be pleased that you're speeding it up.
So. All right. Howard Post for the drawing show. Thank you, Howard.
Thank you.
Yep. Pure silence. That's the best podcast. It's just pure silence. No one speaks.
It's like slow TV. You know, they have.
I like that actually. I think slow TV is a cool thing.
It's a great idea. Like where you sit and watch someone knitting, or you watch a wood stove burning for 8 hours. You know, there's I totally get that.
Yeah,
you know?
It's big in like the Swedish countries.
It's very
right?
big. Yeah,
Norway.
And I've
especially.
Sworn off. I've been off the news since the election.
Yeah.
Just to kind of recover a bit. I'll dip back into it, but I just
clear your palate.
Yeah.
It helps with creativity, I would think, as well.
Yeah, and you have to also kind of you got to control what goes into your head.
Yeah.
You know, like that.
Like anything.
Yeah.
So I have Jim Woodside. He happens to. I love Jim. You live in the East Coast. Is it Massachusetts?
Massachusetts,
yeah. Yet he walks into my gallery more than any other artist I think I represent, including ones that live here.
That's good. That's really good.
And you just show up. I love it. This is like no forewarning. You just, here's Jim walking in with some paintings and stuff.
I do. I really do. It means so much to me. It's like I think of this more as a kind of home, you know?
I get it.
Yeah.
Well, we look at that. I mean, we ask about your dog. I mean, we know the name of your dog.
The dog precedes me. It's it's
that tells something. I don't know.
Very cute.
So I wanted to talk to you because we're doing this drawing show, right? Yeah. And you're one of the participants of it. Yeah. And I wanted to just drill down a little bit on drawing and how that relates to not only what you do as an artist, fine artist, but maybe even as a person. What does it mean to you? Maybe you could just expound on that hugely large question.
It is a large question. I do love drawing, and I do a lot of drawing. I work pretty quickly and in my kind of bold, way, and do these drawings on site. And then lately I've been doing a lot of paintings from them, but I don't think of it like, oh, I'm doing a preliminary drawing for a painting. I don't think of it that way. I think the mindset with drawing, at least for me, is different. If drawing is almost a kind of exhale to the inhale of painting, there's a kind of moment of I don't know, just letting go, refreshing that I find in drawing in the way that I do it. Like this kind of heavy-handed.
I was going to say it's very energetic.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
that one you showed me that I go,
Yeah.
why do I love your paintings so much? I don't know. They just speak to me.
Yeah.
He's drawing, and it was just like,
Yeah. And that is how I do it. That is how I do it. I try not to get caught up in expectations about how it should look or some precise relationship between one form and another. I think the drawing will define those kinds of things, and the drawing will tell you what's most important. And I know that sounds kind of dreamy, but that's not how I.
Sounds like a first draft of a book to me.
Yeah, that's really good. It's like you sit down, you put words down,
right?
And actually, whenever I have to write, I don't write a book or anything like, but that's how I do it. I just sit down and start writing.
Yeah, me too.
And it's the same with drawing. And sometimes I'll look at something. I'll look at a form, or I'll look at a mood, or a weather pattern, or a store, or whatever. And I can kind of like. I see something. It's not like I go, oh, there's a drawing. It's not like that. But there's something that pulls me in and helps me eliminate all the extraneous things around that form or around that idea. And that's what I try to represent in drawing. And I find it very kind of relaxing in a way, even though I do them very kind of frenetically.
Right.
And that way.
Dopamine.
Yeah.
You're getting a dopamine hit.
And I think, drawing is like, it's our first connection to expression for all of us. It's the handwriting, you're a little kid making and so I don't know, that's how I still think about it.
And you probably taught drawing in classes,
that's
right?
mainly what I taught for many, many years.
Was drawing.
Yeah, yeah.
And do you remember when you first started doing drawings that people started to go, oh, you're an artist? 5, 4, 6?
I can't really remember that. I found it to be a very natural and satisfying way to put information down about the world. And I did as a little kid, and I still do.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a great answer to your question.
Yeah, it sounds like the answer is I can't remember a time when I wasn't drawing.
Yeah, that's pretty true.
Yeah, I would think so.
That's pretty true. And actually, I've done all these color ink marker drawings in the last 10 years, and because you can't really retreat with them. You don't erase and plan. You just move forward. It has helped me. Oddly enough, it kind of teaches me restraint. I don't put something down because I know it would work better if I left that part empty or that line half complete, something. And I take that to painting as well.
What to exclude?
Yeah, what to exclude all the time, virtually all the time.
And is that because if you put it in there and you're using these markers you cannot change, you've basically, in your mind, destroyed or ruined the painting drawing as you hoped it would look?
No, it's not so much that I as I hoped it would look, because I don't always have such a clear vision of that. But there is usually, and now I'm speaking about drawing or painting, there is one element that pulls me in, and it could be, the way the grass is blowing here, or some.
It's a trigger point.
A trigger point, and that becomes in a way, the only subject of the drawing or the painting.
Yeah.
That becomes the thing.
Right.
And I don't want anything else to interfere with that, to get in the way of that. So that's what I try to do. And I don't want them to be boring. I want them to.
Yeah.
I want them to be alive.
And you're one of the. There's not a lot of artists at this point, I think, that sell their drawings, but you do. I mean, you bring them, we sell them. I like them. You like doing them. It's so often I see artists, good artists, that do these wonderful drawings, but they're just as preliminary work to get to the finished painting, and they don't even see them sometimes as being worth anything other than being put in a drawer for somebody to find after they're gone.
No, I don't think of them that way.
No, I know you don't.
Yeah, I definitely don't.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping, if nothing else, this drawing show will bring to the forefront that these have intrinsic value beyond just being a step in the process of making a painting. Because I think they do. I look at Dixon's stuff, and I definitely do.
Oh, definitely. And they're also, because of the way that they're done, because of the speed that they're done and so forth, they're often more personal.
Yeah, I get it.
And I don't mean in some like private reveal, but they are quite intimate.
Sure.
And
it's the emotion. It's that emotion, especially for yours, at that point in time, right then.
Yeah, and it goes, boom, here it is, and that's a really, you can see really interesting things about an artist if you look at those.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen the kind of intimate works of some very famous artists that I admire, and go, wow, that's different. That's
Yeah, or you can see when things are rough.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can for sure.
Yeah. And also the fact that I do them pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And doing a lot of them helps me to not become, this is an old story, but not become so attached and precious to each one. And it's liberating.
Yeah.
And I think it makes the drawings better. And sometimes this works, hell, do another one. It's that kind of thinking. It's taken me a while in my life to get to that point.
Yeah, it's called editing.
Editing and getting older and
with
what the hell.
That is exactly how it is in writing for me.
Yeah.
I write the best passage. I think it's fantastic. Then I read it and go, doesn't move the storyline forward. Goodbye.
Yeah.
Even though it's good, goodbye.
Yeah.
And I think when you start to master your craft, you have an easier time going, okay, I like it. I might even love it, but I'm not attached because it doesn't work for whatever reason, or doesn't help.
Yeah. There's a life is short quality that drawing goes right to, and at least I think of it that way, So, I do enjoy that.
Yeah. He enjoys it, and you'll be able to see him at the show. So, you're one of the master drawing individuals that have been, vetted for this show of some of the best, I think.
Well, I'm really proud to be a part of it. I'm proud to be a part of the gallery. I don't know that I'd say I'm a master, but
I get to say that.
But okay.
I designate, if you're in this show, you're a master of drawing.
All right. Well, I do appreciate that, and it's going to be a terrific show, and I'm happy to be part of it.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. I appreciate you doing everything you do and bringing in all this cool work that you just brought in, including this one that's just devastatingly interesting.
Thank you.
The Dust Bowl one.
Thank you. Yeah.
So
find things like that. They're still there. They're still out there in the world.
If you search. Yeah, and you obviously were searching.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes to digress a little, like I went through periods of my life where I always thought like, oh, it's too bad. I missed this era and I missed that era, But, and this has to do with history and the world and maybe it's romantic, but then I've started to learn the stuff is still there. The history is still there. You might have to you might have to find some plaque behind some godforsaken shopping center, but it's there. That's where this event happened in 1890.
Right.
And if you're savvy enough and you're interested enough, you can still feel it. So I try to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, the ground remembers.
The earth remembers, you know, and it does. And I think about that in the desert when I'm painting. I think about that all the time.
Yeah. Of course, we as Homo sapiens think of it in a term of, 300,000 years, but the earth remembers 300 million years.
That's right. Yeah. No,
So, we're part of the big universe of energy, whatever that may be.
Whatever that may be, but just keep on doing it. That's why I think of painting as even when I'm doing a dark painting, like the one we were talking about, but I think of it as a positive thing, as a hopeful thing, because otherwise, why would you do it? Why, if you didn't have that belief in the value or the future or whatever.
Yeah. Just because you write and sing a sad song doesn't necessarily mean it's sad or you are sad.
No.
It's a way of expressing the feelings of that moment, of that feeling.
That kind of cathartic.
It's cathartic for sure. I bet every writer that writes songs feels that way after they do it. And they probably cry the first 10 times they do it, and then all of a sudden it's like that goes away, and that part of it isn't there anymore.
Yeah. And that ties back to only having, for me anyway, what I think is the essential elements in a drawing or a painting, is that I don't want anything else to get in the way of that relationship, and that if that's that emotion or whatever. It's not like I think, I'm going to sit down and do this drawing, it's going to be really emotional. I don't mean it like that.
Of course not.
But I want my direct experience. I want to try to share it and try to relate it.
Yeah.
That's all.
Well, that's what great art is it makes some type of emotion.
And some kind of connection.
Yeah, and it can be sad, happy, giggling, whatever it is. I think the best art promotes something, some connection. So I had a lady in today who was looking at 4 horses. She has 4 sisters. She could see that in that painting, the way it was drawn and painted, and it evoked an emotion.
Oh, that's great. No, well, that's a sensitive viewer that can bring that kind of perspective to an image, to a picture, and that's very satisfying, to have.
They're out there.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that are most fun to talk to.
They must be.
They are.
Must be.
Yeah, it's like the artists. Yeah.
Yeah.
Most artists are that way, though.
It's like I'm not just trying to decorate my walls. I'm trying to put something up that's a reflection of me and what I've discovered and myself and you and all that.
And that connection you see in it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Which all begins with drawing.
Perfect segue back to it. It actually all does begin with drawing.
Yeah.
And drawing and the link to handwriting too.
Yeah.
It's that, again, that first mark that we make.
Yes.
And I've never tired of that. I think that's just beautiful. And as long as you do it in your own way and do your own drawings. I mean, these are tired things. I've said the same thing about painting too, but it's it's so true. Don't do somebody else's drawings.
No, that's right. Yeah. And no one's going to have any. No one's going to look at your drawings and going, "You're trying to emulate someone else."
Yeah.
So, except Marston Hardley, but
well, there's a. To even be mentioned in the same, thing.
That guy,
there's a guy that,
that
knew what he was doing.
He did, and as I've told you on many times, that's who I see in your paintings. I see, you're in that same lane as far as I'm concerned.
Well, that's really just an honor to be mentioned that way. But he's
And for those who may not know who that is, go look it up. So.
You have to know who that is.
Yeah. People don't, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's.
Yeah. No. I wouldn't. You're right. Go look it up. But in particular, that mid-century era of American painting. Like people like Martin Hartley and Birchfield and Avery and others. They Marin. It's just there's something.
Even Dixon.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
You know,
It's something that
they're all
those
there.
guys were getting into. That was the first, in my view, the first real American art.
Yeah.
It was not. They left Europe behind at that point.
Yeah, that's right.
It was, and that was so cool about it.
Yeah.
It was.
I mean, that's what Dixon was trying to do.
Yeah.
He wanted to have. He kept emphasizing to American art, American subject, focus on American stuff.
Yeah.
You know, not European and not this other, whatever that was. And that didn't mean just traditional or things. It could be even in a modern sense, as long as it has this sense of coming from this place.
Yeah, and they were conscious to have the euphoria and the tragedy of America in those paintings. You know, not just, the worshiping the European version of that. Worshiping isn't the word, but I know you understand what I mean.
Yeah.
That was like, and you still look at them now. I look back and I go, wow. And of course, George O'Keeffe and others from that era, but that mid-century period,
Right.
I just love it.
Well, you did this painting today called The Dust Bowl. And, and Dixon lived the Dust Bowl.
Yeah.
And saw the very first remnants of it as he's leaving New Mexico in 32.
Wow.
You know, because it doesn't really hit, 35 probably really is kind of
I think
34, 35.
early 30s. Yeah. It was like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah, I mean, and it lasted for many years.
Yeah.
And, you see these forgotten men and these whole migrations to California and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so.
And the whole, it's such an American story too, because it was the hubris of we can tame the land, we can rip up all the soil and make lots of money. And so it was filled with dreams, with rip-offs, with hubris, and it's a whole kind of American package. It's a really interesting time period that I don't think they bother to teach kids about it.
No, they show maybe one or two photos and say this is a Dust Bowl.
Yeah, that was a thing
Right.
that happened, but I think it's much more of a story than that.
Oh yeah.
So I did this painting.
Yeah. I mean, it's an ecological story, and it's
A human. Yeah.
I mean, it was. I mean, we got rid of buffalo, and that was bad for the land, actually.
Yeah.
Over time.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And
well, we've moved off drawings. I
we
think.
have.
So,
Sorry.
Anyway,
So this is the Buffalo podcast.
Yeah.
And the Dust Bowl podcast.
yes. It was a 1933 to 1938. Thank you. Feedback for the World War II on the next episode. So anyway, thank you for coming and being part of the Masters of Drawing.
Oh, thank you for including me, and thank you for all you do. Thanks.
Absolutely. All right, Jim.